Today we will visit Central Park in New York City and we will use Google Earth. Central Park is one of those places that make New York such a great place to live. The huge park is located in the center of Manhattan. Its design is an example for city parks around the world. Actually, it is almost 4 kilometers on the length and nearly 1 kilometer of width. When the terrain for the Central Park was bought by the city of New York in 1853, it was far away from civilization, somewhere between the city of New York and the village Harlem. Harlem is in the upper part of the garden. We will reach that soon. It was created by a Norwegian, Frederick Olmsted, who immigrated to USA. The creator's goal was to create a place where people could relax and meditate. Here in the upper part of the garden we found the village Harlem, as can be seen on the screen. Now we come in from the south of the garden. We can see some of the more than 24,000 trees that are to be found in Central Park. On Google Earth they have put in trees so we can get an idea how it is like to walk in the garden toward south. Here we have one of the beautiful lakes that makes the garden so unique. Here we walk along the main street leading along the south end of the garden. From here we reach West Side with famous hotels. We can come in from the east toward the west side and see some of the magnificent buildings on Google Earth. The Upper West Side starts at the park and goes to Hudson River. Close to the park some of the best hotels in New York City is found. Right, and from the hotels we reach the biggest water reservoir in the park. In 1934 the focus of the park shifted from relaxation to recreation. Many sports facilities, playgrounds and the Wallman Rink were built. Also the zoo was renovated, and several sculptures including Alice in Wonderland were installed. As we now walk between the trees toward Harlem, the history of the park after the Second World War must be remembered. From 1960, Central Park started to decline. Graffiti, garbage and criminality kept both citizens and tourists from visiting the park. In the 1970s the park became a symbol of New York City's decline. The gangs of New York was a well-known phenomenon in the 60s. When Leonard Bernstein made his famous musical West Side Story, he took the story from the areas around Central Park. In Spanish Harlem north of the park people from Puerto Rico lived, and they often were in conflict with immigrants from other countries. Gangs also had fights in Central Park and young people could be killed in gang violence. One day a preacher named David Wilkerson read about an incident where a boy was killed and several young people were accused for murder. He decided to help these young people by giving them the gospel. We know what happened. Nicky Cruz, who lived a bit north of the park, became Christian and a big change started in the surrounding around Central Park. Now we can go back and get a new view of the park. Coming into the village of Harlem, One can say that the work of David Wilkerson inevitably had an impact on the future of this region of New York City, from the park down to Times Square, and during the time of Wilkerson's and Nicky Cruz's work here the criminality has gone down. For many years there were no more gang violence in the park in the degree it had been in the 60s. We must thank God for this park, and pray that God will preserve it for future use and recreation for the citizens of New York. It is a model for city parks all over the world and has been a great success not only for New York City but for the whole United States.